Good evening. I'm Gregory Morgan, and welcome to LoveTalk, a show that is produced by Embrace Growth, a company founded by myself and my wife, Dr. Azita Sayan, for the purpose of creating communities of generosity and contribution and relationships that leave a legacy of love for future generations. That's what we're about. That's what the shows are about. The TV shows are about Donya Yesh, which is on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and this show every Monday. And our seminars and workshops, which are all focused towards transforming people's relationships with themselves first. First, your relationship with yourself, with what you know on your inside is the right thing to do. And then when you've settled yourself, and your relationship with your own personal integrity, your own personal honor, your own personal sense of what's right and wrong, then and only then are you ready to have relationships with other people. However, unfortunately, or that's just the way the humanity is designed, you and I are in relationship before we can even speak. We begin to learn our relationships through our parents, or whoever is taking care of you when you were a child. And those, whatever you learned in those relationships, set the tone, set the frame of mind for how you will relate to people, whether they are equals, whether they are inferiors. And by inferiors, I mean people who work under you, who are in your charge, or who you're maybe in charge of teaching or training, or maybe who you're in charge of supervising at a job. So it'll set the tone for how you will relate to people who are both underneath you socio and economically, equal to you, people who are authority figures to you or who are in a superior position to you, and it'll also set the tone for how you relate to the opposite sex. And so because those relationships have been taught to us by people who themselves were taught by people who had dysfunctional relationships to begin with, then what has been handed down through the ages, what has been handed down through time, has been a worsening, if you will, a deteriorating type of relationship which has less and less personal responsibility, more and more codependence, meaning you're depending for somebody else to bring you your happiness, your well-being, your sense of being loved, your self-respect, becomes more and more dependent on outside sources. And the instant that your source of happiness, your source of well-being, your source of fulfillment and self-expression lies outside of you, whether it be in things, stuff that people accumulate in their life, whether it be in wealth, whether your sense of self-fulfillment and recognition comes from, and self-respect comes from people's acknowledgement and appreciation of you, or whether it comes from a personal sexual relationship or any other kind of relationship. As long as your sense of self and well-being and happiness comes from someone other than you, then you are in a dependent situation. And it is part of our human nature to want to either resist things that we are dependent upon. In other words, to rise above them, to become independent, as a child wants to be independent from its parents. So we have one drive that is, to become independent, and then we have another drive that is equally strong in some people, and that is to be a victim, to say, I have no responsibility whatsoever, I didn't ask to be born, life is just happening to me, poor me, it didn't turn out well, my mother was like this, my father was like this, I didn't get a proper education, I'm too fat, I'm too short, I'm too skinny, I'm too poor, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not ugly enough, whatever. Right? People have a victim mentality that is born out of the type of relationships that we were trained in and taught in long before we could even speak, long before we could think for ourselves, long before we there are still people who don't think for themselves, obviously. There are people who are in their 40s and 50s and who have never had an original thought in their entire life, who have only, throughout their lifetime, been taught the thoughts of other people, which they've accepted without question. And if they did question, maybe they were reprimanded for that, maybe they were criticized for that or laughed at if they questioned the thinking that they were taught that came down through the ages by actually intelligent people who actually did think. So most of what we've learned in our educational system is to regurgitate, if you will, to repeat or memorize, and then to throw out again the thoughts of people who aren't even here anymore. For the most part, most of the thinking that happened in most of our families happened a long time ago. And so it's been handed down through the ages. And the interesting thing about knowledge that's handed down through the ages is that it gets twisted and turned and reinterpreted, restylized throughout the ages, and so the original meaning is lost long ago. The original meaning of what a wise person, a prophet, an enlightened person, a person who was self-realized or fully realized human being might have uttered some things that probably didn't make sense to the people around them in the first place. Happens to me all the time. That they say something that makes perfect sense to them, and in an attempt to communicate what they're seeing, realizing, understanding, comprehending, wanting to communicate, and it gets misinterpreted or misunderstood. It gets twisted into something that is a shadow of the true meaning, and very often the people who do the twisting then use that knowledge saying it came from, the prophet, or it came from, Jesus or Buddha or whoever, and so therefore it must be the truth, right? It must be the truth, and this is what he said. And this is what he meant by it. And of course, they're clueless, and they don't have any clue whatsoever those people were thinking. But they posed themselves as an authority. So very often, a wise person or an enlightened person's teachings will have been twisted to mean something else, and then used as a way of basically controlling other people and making some money on the side, or making a career of it, or making a position in life to elevate someone's status, so that they could hold dominion over others as the holder of some wisdom that was never theirs in the first place, and that they never understood in the first place, and that they was passed down through time, and that we have accepted without thinking on our own, without judging, without evaluating for ourselves. Maybe that was true then, but maybe it's not true anymore. Maybe that had a meaning that is other than what I've been taught. I wonder what this wise person may have meant when they said that. And then, of course, there are many people who were just totally delusional and who passed themselves off as wise people in the first place. And they seem to have an equal standing alongside of those who were truly enlightened. So to the unenlightened, to the uninformed, to those who have no developed ability over a lifetime to reflect, meaning to observe one's thinking. To reflect upon something is to hold your thinking out ahead of you and to actually reflect it back to yourself and see, I wonder what this means. I wonder if it's true. I wonder what was meant by this. What do I think? And then to actually generate and think authentic, true thoughts that come from yourself, regardless of whether those thoughts turn out to be the truth, if you will, but to have the courage and to have the wherewithal to literally think for oneself, to examine not just with one's thought, one's logical thinking and one's ability to be rational, but to also think with one's creative thinking, with the heart. I believe that the true thinking comes from the heart. If you can develop the ability to reflect in your heart, to see how something feels for you, and at the same time use your intelligence to look at it rationally and logically, I believe you will have a fuller picture of the meaning of life, your life, and my life, and the meaning of life itself. You will begin to look at life in a way that will be unique to yourself, unique to you and you alone. And one of the things that I have found, maybe two of the things that I have found that seem to be true, that I want to share with you and speak with you about on this show, are the notions that come from human beings and that are born in language. And that is our ability as human beings to become aware. Not just, you could say that other things are aware, a dog or a cat or a horse is aware, but they're aware of out there. They're aware of what's going on out there. That's how they stay alive. But then human beings have made a leap in consciousness, a leap in awareness, in which we are able to become aware of our awareness. We're able to become aware of ourselves, being awake and alive and aware. And therefore have the capacity to self-reflect, to look at ourselves and to examine our own thinking. We are able to think abstract thoughts, meaning thoughts that have no actual physical substance. We're able to see and imagine things that don't physically exist, give them words, concepts, context, and the ability to see things inside of a system of thinking. Another word for that would be a matrix of thinking or a paradigm of thinking. A paradigm is an overarching set of thoughts, if you will, that form a particular reality. And so one of the thoughts or matrix or paradigms of reality is love. That love exists. Now, does love exist for a cow, for a dog, for a nonverbal creature? That's a big question, and a lot of people will say, yes, of course my dog loves me, I know they love me. And how do you know they love you? Well, they look at me a certain way, and they act a certain way, and they behave a certain way. And while I have dogs that I totally love, and I like to feel that they love me too, I think that if I stopped feeding them, stopped petting them and being affectionate with them, and I just stopped showing what I call love to them, that they would probably go love somebody else, you see. They would probably go do whatever it is they're doing over there somebody else, because maybe somebody else would give them food and affection and like that. So I'm not sure that what we call love as human beings exists in the animal world. However, there is something that strongly resembles that, so we'll go with that for the moment. And it's beside the point here, because the concept of love didn't come from animals. The concept of love came from human beings, and it came from language. We begin to ponder and think and reflect and become aware of our awareness. We begin to reflect on our feelings and want to express them in some way, and we created words to do that. We created words, poems, songs, symbols of love and friendship that we share with others as a symbol. So the word love is simply a symbol for something else. And of course, in any language, it's something else, yes? There's dus te daram, je t'aime, mi amour, so forth. Love, my love. There's so many different expressions, each one a different word, but they are symbols of the actual thing. And the actual thing is something, it's a concept that cannot be seen. You can't see it. If we opened you up, you could be so full of love that you could be overwhelmed with tears. And if we opened you up and looked inside, we wouldn't find any love going on in there. We wouldn't see love. We couldn't see it. We couldn't measure it. So from a scientific point of view, there's no such thing. There's only the words for it and the feeling of it. The feelings are real. The words are real. The results are real. When people love each other, it's obvious that there are capacities of behavior that we have for each other inside of a context called love. Okay? So in the LoveTalk show, what we're talking about is a concept that you can't really actually see. You can't measure it, and yet you can talk about it, and you can think about it, and you can feel it, and you can share it with another. And you could want it more than anything in the whole world. And you could have your whole life be about that. You could even open a company and have a TV show about love, okay? and so we have. It's a concept worthy of expression. It's a concept worthy of sharing and talking about. So we have this show called LoveTalk. And we have another show called Donyayesh, the Universe of Love. And another show that my wife is beginning called Ashram. I'm sorry if I don't speak it correctly. And so we're all about love and embrace growth. And our seminars and workshops, our books, our CDs, our DVDs are all about exploring, expressing, and finding out what works and doesn't work in those relationships that are founded on this concept called love. You know, there's lots of relationships that are founded on something else. You can have a relationship that's founded strictly on money, right? You could hate your boss, hate your job, and still have a relationship that's respectful and honorable, in which you go and you do what you're getting paid to do, they pay you, and you honorably and respectfully give your service and are honorably and respectably paid for that. And it may have nothing to do with love whatsoever, except that maybe you love yourself enough to honor your word and do what you said you would do. So, be that as it may, so respect alone does not engender love. Honor alone does not necessarily engender love. However, in the world of men, honoring their words and honoring their commitments, honoring their duty, honoring their reputation, honoring their family, honoring their obligations, protecting and providing for the people they say they love in an honorable way, that is an expression of their honor, an expression of their respect. When men love, they pay respect to, they honor something. It is different than, say, when a child loves a kid, a child loves another child, or a child loves a puppy, or a mother loves a child, or a mother loves her husband. It's a different kind of love. And I make this distinction because most men don't really talk too much or think too much or express sometimes their love. However, it doesn't mean that they don't have a deep, abiding, powerful, and very, very profound love. Love for the women and children in their lives, love for other men, which they express by paying them respect or honoring them, and love for humanity. When I've spent time with men, and I've made a point of it, because most of the things that have had me want to be a better man came from men. There's a lot of things about women that make me want to be a better man. Certainly my wife makes me want to be a better man so that I can better respect myself, earn and honor her respect, and to be a man that she respects. Yes? So certainly I want to be a better man from my relationship with women. However, the harder things, the things about me that were less honorable, the things about me that really needed to be challenged in a very masculine way, were those changes came about out of my relationship with men, out of my trust for men, out of my honoring of my word with men. They were able to hold me accountable in a way that I probably would not have allowed a woman to do, just because I'm a very independent and I'm just a different kind of man. I don't like being mothered, and my relationship with my mother, while it was wonderful, where I learned to my self-respect and things that made a difference in my life, I learned them from my father. So I'm thankful for that. And so I've created workshops called the Honor, Integrity, and Mastery Workshops, and I'll tell you about an opportunity to participate in those a little later in the show. At any time that you wish to, you can go to embracegrowth.com, which is clearly on your screen there at the bottom of the screen, and you can always go and check out the Honor, Integrity, and Mastery Workshops. It's under a tab called Events, but there's also a picture of me over on the left-hand side of the screen on the website, and you can just click on that and it'll take you to the page about the workshops and find out about those.